Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, aka Daddy Dreidels. Week 2 is in the books and the league is looking a lot like a bell curve. 2 unbeaten teams, 2 winless teams, and 75% of the league clumped together at 500. As always, I'll take you around the league looking at scores and stats, and we'll have our first official look at the Team Daddy standings. But as always, we begin with a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Viagra. When you have trouble performing under pressure, pop a Viagra and you'll be up all night long. Warning, if your erection lasts more than 4 hours, please seek medical attention. This product does not guarantee results or a satisfying experience. We'll start this week's recap off with our first matchup of unbeaten teams, PJ versus Armenti. This one came down to Monday night with PJ clinging to a lead of just over 30 points. But even with Bijan Robinson and the Eagles' D left to play, the commish held off Armenti for his second straight win, 142.5 to 125.75. Captain Chris Godwin led the way for PJ's team with 50.55 points, and PJ also got 31 points from Devontae Adams. Armenti was led by Amon-Ra St. Brown with 27.9 points, but ultimately he could not overcome the large deficit left by the rest of his team. Armenti is now 1-1 and will look to get above 500 next week when he takes on Cheese. Meanwhile, PJ moves to 2-0 on the young season and will try to stay unbeaten through week 3 when he faces off against Jed. Our other matchup of unbeaten teams pitted 1-0 Swans against 1-0 Josh. This one also came down to Monday Night Football, with Swans relying on Saquon Barkley and Josh calling on Drake London. And when the clock hit 000, Josh emerged victorious, beating Swans 175 to 151.95. Kyler Murray led the way for Josh with 41.2 points, and Josh also got 30-point games from Justin Jefferson and Captain Jordan Mason. On the other sideline, Swans was led by Malik Neighbors with 33.7 points, but picks up a tough L despite outscoring 7 other teams. With the loss, Swans is now 1-1 on the young season, and will look to get back to his winning ways next week when he takes on Kyle. Meanwhile, Josh is now 2-0 somehow, and will try to prove that it's not a fluke when he takes on Big John in week 3. Speaking of Big John, our gentle giant got his first win of the season, beating Kyle 128.15 to 119.6. Big John was led by Captain Josh Jacobs with 25.65 points, and Big John also got 21.8 points from Joe Burrow. The win was made even more impressive by the fact that John left a wide receiver slot empty, as Keenan Allen was ruled out prior to game time. But it made no difference, as Big John collects a big win, but I digress. Kyle was led by Captain Derrick Henry with 24.9 points, but ultimately came up short this week. At 0-2, Kyle will try again for his first win of the season next week against older brother Swans, while 1-1 Big John will look to start a winning streak against Josh. Speaking of streaks, I think we all smelled the streaks coming from Brett's ass as he shit the bed this week against my dominant team. I was able to get my first win of the season this week after defeating Brett 213.15 to 146.18. Marvin Harrison Jr. led the way for my team with 38 points, and I also got strong games from Devon Achane and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Brett's team was led by Alvin Kamara with 53 points, earning him $10 as the week's highest scoring player. But it made no difference as I got 20 for having the highest scoring overall team of the week. Oh, and Brett, to answer your question, I have no idea how Alvin Kamara's cock tastes, but let me know how that Hebrew hammer went down. After stooping and whooping Brett, we are both 1-1 and will try to get above 500 in week 3. Brett will face off against Zach, while I will take on George. Speaking of Brother to you, he came to play this week, beating Zach 181.3 to 160.65. George was led by Nico Collins with 32.5 points, and George also got 30.15 points from Geno Smith. On the other sideline, Zach was led by DK Metcalf with 37.9 points, and Zach also got 35.1 points from Captain James Conner. But in the end, it was not enough as Zach takes his first loss of the season. Trooper Hoff is now 1-1 on the young season, and will look for his second win of the year next week against Brett. Meanwhile, Brother Chuyu is also 1-1 to start the season, and will go for his second win in a row next week when he and I square off. Our final matchup of the week saw a head-to-head matchup between 2 teams looking for their first win of the season. And in the end, it was Jed coming away with the elusive victory, beating Cheese 142.3 to 113.45. Breece Hall led the way for Jed with 24.4 points, and Jed also got 20-point games from Deebo Samuel and Rashee Rice. On the other sideline, Cheese was led by Patrick Mahomes with 22.45 points, but could not get much scoring anywhere else. Cheese did have the highest scoring kicker of the week, with Kaimi Fairbairn picking up 20 points, but it was not enough to get the dub. At 0-2, Cheese will be trying for his first win of the season next week against Armenti in a battle of the PAPD Blue. Meanwhile, Jed is now 1-1 and will look to get above 500 as he takes on PJ in Week 3. Here are the Team Daddy standings after Week 2. PJ and Josh are on top as the only two unbeaten teams left. Behind them are Swans, myself, Zach, Brett, George, Jed, Armenti, and Big John, all of us at 1-1. At the bottom we have Cheese and Kyle at 0-2, but there is plenty of football left to be played. As a reminder, the captains are due at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you get your picks to Swans and or Brett on time in order for them to count. Thank you as always for watching. This has been your Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, and I will see you next time. L'chaim, motherfuckers!